This is Tiger Woods, 15-time major champion, 82-time PGA Tour winner, which is tied for the most of all time, and through tournament winnings, sponsorships, and the creation of his own golf brand, the first professional golfer that is a billionaire. While Tiger Woods and other star golfers of color, such as the great Calvin Peete and the late Lee Elder, have established themselves as legends of the game, the opportunity for these players to shine on the course used to be non-existent. In the first half of the 20th century, the words African American and golfer were rarely used in the same sentence. Strict segregation laws and verbal and physical oppression pushed African American players away from the game of golf. Whether they wanted to play professionally and make a good living off of the sport, or just have a way to meet new people and socialize, African Americans were missing out on the opportunity to enjoy a game that was beginning to rise in popularity across the nation. Luckily, through the hard-fought efforts of fairness-seeking African Americans at the local, state, and national levels, the second half of the 20th century saw a much overdue acceptance of minority golfers on professional golf tours, at local municipal courses, and at private, well-established country clubs.
Unfortunately, despite the fact that the energetic, charismatic Tiger Woods helped break the common stereotype that golf is a rich, white man's sport, there are plenty of minority-related issues in the game today. Luckily, there are several groups and organizations working to make golf more equal than ever, while recognizing and appreciating the incredible progress made so far.
In 1894, the USGA was founded in New York as a governing body for the 1,000-plus golf courses across the nation. 2 years later, in 1896, African-American John Shippen became the first black professional golfer, winning $10 from his fifth-place finish at the United States Open at Shinnecock Hills, a course that he helped build and worked at as a teenager. Unfortunately, many of his white competitors threatened to quit despite his friendly, calm nature. He'd play in several more U.S. Opens, but Shippen was an extremely rare exception for black golfers. In fact, no other African American appeared in the U.S. Open for another 50 years. There were many instances of freed slaves designing golf courses, yet they were barred from playing on them due to the sport's exclusive culture. African Americans were simply not given the opportunities in golf that their Caucasian counterparts were granted, as they faced serious oppression and Jim Crow laws that hindered any aspirations to have success in golf. In fact, the man who invented the wooden golf tee, Dr. George Grant, wasn't allowed to play on the golf course near his home in Boston, as they'd all kicked him off for his race. Instead, he was forced to play in his backyard with fellow black golfers on little makeshift holes. In reality, these African Americans were a step ahead in golf technology, as other golfers were still using small sand mounds to tee up their golf balls. When Augusta National Golf Club, the home of the Masters tournament, was founded in 1933, founders Bobby Jones and Clifford Roberts made it a goal to implement Jim Crow laws at the course. As long as he was alive, Roberts claimed that all the players at the course should be white and all the caddies should be black. This was rare, as most tournaments allowed for outside personal caddies to be used, but the disgusting, racist culture of the South were all too prevalent. In 1928, a group of black golfers came together to purchase a golf course in California with the goal of having a place to play. The issue? Local white supremacists, as the KKK burned a cross into the lawn of the property, threatening these men into never opening the course. 15 years prior, Walter Speedy and 3 fellow black golfers were denied entry onto Chicago's Jackson Park Golf Club. Chicago didn't have Jim Crow laws, so, like Dr. Grant in Boston, northern African American golfers were also heavily discriminated against. In 1943, the PGA Tour added a no-color player policy to their bylaws, further emphasizing that the racist roots of golf were still present at the professional level as well. There hadn't been any black golfer who'd played in any PGA Tour sanctioned events, but these words put into place by the head of the tour only reaffirmed their support of segregation, discrimination, and isolation, halting any hope for progress. The issue of racism on the golf course continued to be a problem at the midpoint of the century, but other nations were more open to inclusion. In 1946, Bill Powell, a black soldier stationed in Scotland during World War II, was actually encouraged by locals to play on their golf courses, a gesture that would have been unimaginable on the other side of the Atlantic. It became clear to many that the issue of racial segregation on the golf course was an American issue, that a country who called themselves the land of the free wasn't providing all citizens with the social and leisure freedoms that they deserved to be granted. Luckily, the brave actions of freedom-fighting groups and individuals across the nation allowed for a slow, long overdue integration of African Americans into the sport of golf. I took a trip down to Carroll Park Golf Course, one of Baltimore's 5 city-owned courses in operation today. When the course was purchased in 1923, only white players were granted access. After years of fighting for equality and working with city officials, African Americans were granted permission to practice chipping and putting, but only on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Through continued determination, the co-ed pitch and putt was founded, finally allowing for African American men and women to play rounds on the course. 10 years later, black golfers were granted access to all city-owned courses. The efforts of these determined golfers also had an impact beyond the golf course, as many describe it as the first step towards desegregating Baltimore's playing fields and swimming pools as well. The most notable instance of amateur minority golfers fighting for change occurred in Atlanta. In 1951, Tup Holmes and 3 black golfers were denied access to Bobby Jones Golf Course. This led to the golfers claiming that their 14th Amendment rights had been violated. 300 fighters for justice came together, creating the Atlanta Golf Committee to fight this injustice. When Holmes vs. Atlanta made it to court, local KKK attorneys went as far as to join the case as amicus curiae in an effort to put a stop to change. In 1954, the Supreme Court sided with the golfers, desegregating public golf courses in Atlanta and shattering the hopes of Southern segregationists. This ruling allowed for great progress in all public spaces across the nation, as it was the first time that the infamous Brown v. Board of Education case was used as precedent, reaffirming that the separate but equal clause created in 1896 from Plessy v. Ferguson was no more. While some black golfers started their own groups, many of the African Americans who were unable to play on existing golf courses decided to join together and create a few courses strictly for African Americans. Remember Bill Powell, the former soldier who found his love for the game in Scotland? Well, Powell was a pioneer in this regard, as he bought 78 acres of land and built a course by hand upon returning from Scotland. Despite the extremely common threats, vandalism, and angry racist neighbors, Clearview Golf Course, the first golf course inclusive of all people, was founded. Powell was later given the PGA Distinguished Service Award, stating that he did not want other people who wanted to play the game of golf to have to suffer the indignities that he had. It wasn't until the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that all public golf courses began to desegregate. While the UGA was created in the 1920s to allow for African Americans to have a golf tour to play on, the prize money, recognition, and prestige that came from the tournament's success was nowhere near that of the PGA Tour. Ethel Funchess was an 8-time UGA champion, yet she was no household name like the PGA stars at the time, such as Sam Snead, Walter Hagen, and Ben Hogan. Luckily, thanks to the progress of desegregation at the amateur level, the PGA Tour finally lifted their white-only clause in 1961. This was long overdue, as the MLB, NBA, and NFL had all desegregated over a decade prior. Luckily, it didn't take long for black golfers to make their presence felt on the big stage. Charlie Sifford, the man who Tiger Woods calls the Jackie Robinson of our sport, was the man who broke the color barrier. By 1970, Sifford and fellow black golfer Pete Brown each had 2 wins to their name, and 5 years later, Lee Elder became the first black golfer to play in the Masters, the most prestigious tournament in all of golf. When Augusta National founder Cliff Roberts died in 1977, more progress followed, with the Masters allowing outside caddies in 1983 and welcoming their first black member, Ron Townsend, in 1990. Progress for black golfers continued as the century came to a close, with Calvin Peete racking up 12 PGA Tour victories, the establishment of the National Black Golf Hall of Fame, and in 1996, Renee Powell became the first black female PGA Tour member. A year later, the young protege, Tiger Woods, took the world by storm, winning the Masters tournament in dominant fashion. This victory led to the sharpest increase in black golfers the nation had ever seen. While this progress was great to see, it was not a smooth process at all. Many private clubs did whatever they could, from changing club dues to simply ignoring prospective members to stay segregated. According to the Washington Post, it is believed that Elkridge Country Club, right down the street, didn't allow its first black member until 2005. Dallas Country Club didn't have its inaugural member of color until 2015. Lewis Myers, founder of the Congressional Golf Association, says, "Even today, it's tough for persons of color to become members of country clubs. There are more barriers of entry and less access. The number of African Americans seeking to become teaching professionals is also alarmingly low." As Woods' career has continued, so has the rise in amateur popularity. In fact, 2021 saw 4.1 million African American golfers in the United States, which is roughly 1.5 million higher than a decade prior and roughly 3.5 million higher than 1990. Tiger's father, Earl Woods, even predicted that his son would transcend the game and bring to the world a humanitarianism which has never been known before. While this held true in some respects, the professional level has not been one of them. As millions tuned in to watch the 2024 Masters tournament, Tiger Woods was the only black competitor. Despite the success and triumphs of Woods, the number of successful professional black golfers playing today could be counted on one hand. Zane Scatlin exclaimed, "It seemed that in 1997 the whole world of golf had changed because of this one guy who was exceptional, but 23 years on, it's not as far as we should have it." One of the key reasons for this lack of diversity in golf is how expensive it is to get exposure. For junior players, the key way to get noticed from college coaches is through non-school sanctioned tournaments. Playing in these tournaments often costs several hundreds of dollars, making it tough to get your name out there without the proper financial backing. Once one makes it as a professional, the prices only get steeper. Aaron Grimes, a black golfer currently on the APGA Tour, says that the guys quit because they run out of money. It costs him $7,000 to play in just 4 tournaments, so it's quite challenging to make it as professional. Overall, people hope that the racial demographics of the PGA Tour look more like America, but unfortunately that is not the case at all, as many aspects of the game are difficult to access. Additionally, there are still unfortunate instances of racism on the golf course today. American professional Maurice Allen claims to have experienced opponents kick his ball out of bounds and has faced trouble getting into certain events. Meanwhile, Zane Scatlin of England has heard numerous racist remarks on the golf course since his youth days. Allen has also brought attention to the controversial name of the Masters tournament. While it isn't for certain, the fact that Augusta National was built on an old slave plantation has led many to believe that the tournament's name is dedicated to those slave owners. Professional sports teams with controversial names in both the NFL and MLB have changed their names in recent years, but the PGA Tour seems to want no part in joining the trend. While the current state of golf still has its racial issues, there are some programs fighting for continued change. Luckily, the Advocates Professional Golf Tour was created to open up more accessible tournament opportunities for people of color. The majority of players are African Americans, and besides tournaments, the tour connects these players with coaches, sponsors, and other developmental resources. These are extremely beneficial as, besides tournament winnings, sponsorships are the main way that professional golfers make a living. Additionally, even the best players in the world have coaches by their side at every tournament, tweaking little things to help them remain consistent. The fact that the APGA helps these players find highly qualified coaches is huge for their development. Additionally, in recent years, there have been several HBCUs to create golf teams, bringing the total number up to 34. Just a few years ago, the Howard University men's and women's golf teams were promoted to the Division I level, joining fellow HBCUs Florida A&M, Alabama State, and Texas Southern. This jump to D1 allowed their players to play in some of the most competitive collegiate tournaments in the country at premier PGA Tour level courses. This exposure to what it's like to be a professional was made possible by NBA star Steph Curry, who in 2020 made a 7-figure donation to the Howard Golf program. While the increase in opportunities for black golfers to play collegiately is on the rise, the number of youth golfers of color is also progressing. According to the National Golf Foundation, over a quarter of youth golfers today are not white. There are 2 key programs that have made this progress a reality: Youth on Course and First Tee. First Tee blends kids of different financial backgrounds together with the help of volunteers who teach key skills and on-course etiquette, creating an inclusive, accepting culture. Meanwhile, the Youth on Course program makes rounds at participating courses across the nation only $5. All of these opportunities, which weren't around just a few decades ago when Tiger Woods broke onto the stage, have the future of diversity in golf looking like it'll be on the rise. Overall, the progress made for African American golfers over the last 125 years has been extraordinary. The elite-based, exclusive culture that used to be associated with golf has developed into a much more diverse, welcoming, empowering one. It took courage from amateur figures such as Tup Holmes and Walter Speedy, as well as from professionals such as Charlie Shifford, to help shape golf into the great game that continues to grow in popularity today. As the culture of golf continues to develop, it's important that society continues to support these programs, tours, and golfers of color that are working to make the demographics of golf a more accurate representation of the demographics of this nation.